हरि श्री गणपतये नमः.
Gurubhyo Namaha Avignamastu.
Hello friends, welcome to Newjiva, a health and wellness service that is based on the principles of Ayurveda. This video is a first in a series of conversations about Ayurveda. If you are someone who wants to learn more about Ayurveda, if you want to know what are the core principles of Ayurveda, where can you find an Ayurvedic practitioner, what happens during an Ayurvedic consultation, and also how can you use Ayurveda in your own health journey, then continue to watch this video until the very end. My guest today is Anuradha Gupta. She is an Ayurvedic clinical specialist in California. She has her own practice. She has recently co authored a book, Unveiling Health, Happiness, and Longevity, a primer on Ayurveda, which is available on Amazon. I'm going to put the link for this book in the description. Do check it out. It's an amazing read. Anuradha is also faculty at Kerala Ayurveda Academy, and she's an active member of the local chapter of PFLAG, which supports LGBTQ plus communities and their families. So, a very warm welcome to you, Anuradha.
Namaste.
We were both born in India, and it's a cradle of Ayurveda. So, can you tell us a little bit about growing up in India? Was Ayurveda part of your daily routine?
Ayurveda is built into our lives through our lifestyle, through our diet, all the principles in our daily life, what we call our daily regimen. So, actually, interestingly, that's in every household, but in my house, my great grandmother was a Vedya. And then a lot of lineages were broken because of British colonization. So that was a lineage which was broken because the British banned Ayurveda. But what they could not ban was the daily practices, which is why yoga actually came to the West much sooner. And Ayurveda as a clinical practice of Vedic sciences came much later. However, it's daily practices of the food that you cook, the spices that you incorporate, when to eat, the routine that you follow, sleeping enough, all of that was something we just took for granted. So, yes, it was very much a part of my life. If you are a little sick, then what should your mother give you? And turmeric milk if you have a fall and you have some aches and pains. And then if you have allergies, you're gargling or you're steaming. So all of that was so common.
Right. So even I remember in my childhood, if we ever got sick, any of the family members, the first thing my mom would do is she would look up her notes and her books and whatever her mother had taught her previously. And that's how we managed minor illnesses at home. So, yes, Ayurveda was very much a part of our lives back then. So, I wanted to ask you, for people who don't know much about Ayurveda, here in the West, how would you summarize it or explain it in a few simple sentences?
Ayurveda is a preventive based, lifestyle based healing practice. It's a 5,000-year-old practice from India, which is experiential and it is evidence based. And it basically focuses on our diet, our sleep, and our lifestyle to prevent disorders. And then it has a very robust protocols for disease management through cleansing, like panchakarma. We all have heard of panchakarma through Katy Perry. And then formulations that one can take, lifestyle alterations that one can make, which are tailored to a particular disease. So there are people who practice Ayurveda, and the people who practice, there are people who go to school for so many years. So it's not just about take turmeric. They learn so much more about your constitution and personalizing your regimen, your constitution, and your imbalances based on three functional principles: vata, pitta, and kapha, which derive from five functional energies. And then we say, okay, let's say you are a vata pitta constitution. That constitution will govern your structure, function, affinities, tendencies, and your disease propensities. So a vata person will generally be a thin, petite person with a tendency to arthritis. So we know what their constitution is, we will tailor their entire protocol based on that, and we'll empower them to learn about themselves. So it's about prevention, disease management, and living life to our fullest potential based on a knowledge of ourselves.
So it is living with nature in accordance with the laws of nature. When the sun is at the highest point in the sky, that's when our digestive power is the strongest, which is why we should have our biggest meal during lunchtime at noon. So these are some of the principles that we learn in Ayurveda is adhering to the principles of nature and aligning our
Absolutely.
bodies and mind with nature. So this reminds me of a beautiful shloka which was in Sushrut Samhita, and Sushrut is regarded as the father of surgery. He wrote this book, Sushrut Samhita. There's a shloka in it, which is an aphorism which he wrote in the 6th century BCE, and it goes something like this in Sanskrit: Samadosha Samagnishcha Samadhatu Malakriya Prasannatmendriya Manaha Swastha Ityadhibhyate. So basically, what he's trying to say is just because you don't see any physical symptoms outwardly, or you haven't been assessed with a disease, does not necessarily mean that you have complete good health. There are a lot of other components that go into actually being considered very healthy. So do you want to explain a little bit what this aphorism means?
Absolutely. So I'll start with one thing that you touched upon, which is so beautiful, that we are part of nature and that we should follow natural rhythms. Now, we know that a lot of people talk about circadian rhythms, right? There was a Nobel Prize, but we talked about it 5,000 years back. We said, okay, align with a daily regimen, align. And we talked about different times, Vata time, Pitta time, Kapha time, and what to do at different times. Then we talked about different seasons and the influence of different doshas in those seasons and how to align our regimen. So that is a very beautiful science, because in fall, for instance, there's going to be an influence of vata, which is when we may get more restless, more anxious. We may find that there is constipation, there's sleep issues. So just understanding this science helps. Now, as far as the shloka goes, so Acharya Sushruta is so respected. There is a whole monument of his in, and I think in a hospital in Australia, and then he's referenced in books related to cataract and ophthalmology. So back then he did all these surgeries, and he did postmortems, and he tried to understand the human body. So what he's saying is, when your doshas, which is the vata, pitta, kapha, the energies are in balance, when your agni, your digestive and metabolic fire, not just digestion but digestion and metabolism, is balanced, when all the tissues and organ systems are in balance, and when your excretion, so that is through which is very important, right? We pay a lot of importance to that. That's one
Yes,
question we ask in Ayurveda. So how is your bowel movement?
right.
So how is your hunger, right? So bowel, urination and sweat, when all of that is regulated, and when your mind and your senses are pleasant, when your
Mm.
spirit is pleasant. So it's so holistic, because we're talking about the body, we're talking about the mind and the spirit. When they are all in balance, that is when you are in a state of health, which is the same definition that WHO has for health. It doesn't say that the absence of disease is being in a state of health. It says that it's got to be a state of social health, physical health,
Mm.
psychological health. And social health is another thing we talk a lot about in Ayurveda, the community support and our own connection with ourselves.
Right, because these are all the different aspects that make up our lives and our personality, how we react to other people, our jobs, the seasons. I mean, everything is included in Ayurveda, and it's such a holistic approach to living a healthy life. So, you talked about the challenges that your great grandma faced, in that the British tried to ban her practice. And I find it very interesting that even today, Ayurveda gets a backlash, and it's always a target because it's seen as a threat. And case in point being, if someone goes on Google and searches for the word Ayurveda, the first article that comes up is a Wikipedia article that says Ayurveda is a pseudoscience. But at the same time, it's so interesting that there are established health agencies like John Hopkins or WebMD or you have Mount Sinai or NIH, which is the National Institutes of Health. All of them have actually mentioned Ayurveda as part of complementary integrative services. So I find that very interesting juxtapositioning of these two viewpoints. So, in your opinion, do you think that the West is now learning the value of Ayurveda, and are they ready to actually integrate it into their established health services as complementary services?
Absolutely. I think now the West is talking so much about functional medicine. They're talking about the importance of yoga and meditation, right? So they have realized that Western medicine as a band-aid solution can sometimes not work. We definitely need it for emergency management. We need it for many cases. Antibiotics have helped. There's so many very, very stark cases of illnesses were helped by Western medicine and advancement in science. But there are side effects from these medications and from certain procedures, and therefore working integratively for the best for a client or a patient is what we've all realized is needed. So there's traditional medicine, there's the home based practices,
Mhm.
there's community practices, and then there's Western medicine, and they can all work together. Unfortunately, what happens is that sometimes when Ayurveda is referred to as a pseudoscience, it's a little bit of whitewashing that even the doctors in India tend to do, because there it's competitive. Like Ayurveda is a licensed healthcare practice, homeopathy is a licensed healthcare practice, then there's Western medicine, and they think we are superior. But we can actually all work together. And in India in 2030, the mission is that all these practices will be done together. And when I talk to Ayurvedic doctors in India, they say ignore all that. We know our strengths. We know that in chronic diseases, we can actually provide solutions. Like you can actually medicate a person and suppress their symptoms, or you can address the root cause. We
Mhm.
want to address the root cause so that the complications don't keep increasing. That's why I think a lot of these places like John Muir, they realize they're doing functional medicine. Functional medicine is just another type of
Right.
Ayurveda, but very superficial. We have
Mhm.
5,000 years of experiential data. Of course, when Ayurveda was banned, we didn't collate all the case studies that we could have. There was a lot that we lost, but then post independence we worked very hard to gather everything. During in India, two-thirds of the clinical trials were in Ayurveda. So it's very
Mhm.
robust. And we have to advance it. Like people like you have to advance it. I'm so
Mhm.
proud of you. So
Yeah.
for
Thank
those
you.
who don't know, I'm also Zai's mentor, and I'm so proud. She's like, when they say the student becomes better than the teacher, she's like that.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I don't think so. You're very kind to say that. When you said about doing research, because the USA only will accept us if they see research or control studies done like they do over here. And so, even when my clients ask me about research being done on certain formulations or certain single herbs, I point them to the Ayush website because there they have the whole database of all the research that is being done in India on Ayurveda and on herbal medicines, etc. So that's a very good resource if somebody wants to actually see the research work that's being done in Ayurveda. They can go to the Ayush website.
The thing is that we have to understand that when Ayurveda is personalized, it is difficult that a lot of our research is based on a single case, because we are personalizing medication. So when we or therapies or treatment protocols, so a lot of our papers are about what is the pathogenesis and what we call samprapti and chikitsa. Then some of them are about individual cases, and then we are talking about systems biology. So we're not saying Tylenol will address pain. We are saying Kalyanaka Ghritam will alter the gut digestion, Agni metabolism,
Right.
and therefore the serotonin levels, and therefore lead to, after a few weeks, probably an improvement in the mood. So that direct correlation where an
Mhm.
antibiotic is given is not there. It's systems biology. So we have to change the paradigms in research also. So that's something that we have to do. In the US, we cannot do the research because we are alternative healing. But in
Right.
India, a lot of research is being done, like in standardized formats have, of course, we lost a few centuries
Mhm.
through being banned, but now it's being resurrected. And yes, Ministry of Ayush and otherwise also, I love pointing students out to, you say something like diabetes,
Mhm.
Ayurveda, research, and you'll find like PubMed and
Mhm.
all kinds of very respected journals. And you have to, then of course you have to know which are the journals to, that are
The legitimate
peer
sources.
reviewed. Yeah.
So the other question that a lot of people have asked is, why should I consider Ayurveda as one of the options in my health journey? What's so special about Ayurveda? How does it stand apart from other health modalities, or what are its unique features? So, how do you explain that?
See, today in the US, 6 out of 10 people have a lifestyle based disorder,
Mhm.
and 4 out of 10 have two lifestyle based disorders, which are diabetes or some cardiac issues or lung conditions or joint disorders. And so uh, it is almost accepted that we are going to get one of these illnesses. But if you adopt Ayurveda, you adopt that prevention, you can improve your longevity and the quality of your longevity by just simple healthcare measures. One Ayurvedic consultation can actually help you. It's like an investment in your future. And
Mhm.
I know this personally from my own family's journey. You know this, right? And we know that through working with different clients. So I think that is the power of Ayurveda. We get to know about ourselves, we get to know our disease propensities, we know how to prevent any disorders. We know, okay, I have this tendency to joint disorders, but I should be regular with my yoga, Ayurveda, and sleep. For different people, the sleep requirement is different, the food requirement is different. So we personalize that care.
Mhm.
And I think that is so important in today's life, which is all productive, let's be more productive, and people are burning out and stressed, and people are not addressing mental health there. If we
Right.
take a pause and we say, okay, let me prioritize my health, that is so important.
Yeah, in Ayurveda, we were taught to look at the mind and the body as one unit, not as separate units, because they do affect each other. And even in my practice, I see many times that when people come to me and they may have eating disorders, or they're gaining weight, or they have sleeplessness issues. And while these may seem like the primary symptoms on a surface level, if you dig deeper down, you see that they have anxiety, they have stress, and they could have depression, a lack of self confidence, or fear. And so that is really the root cause of the issue here, which manifests into the physical symptoms and their habits. So, as a practitioner, then I have to address both the mind and the body, and that is one of the unique features of Ayurveda. And I keep telling my clients, I give them an example. Let's say you have a leaky tap and you have the wet floor. You don't want to keep wiping the floor. We have to go fix the tap first. They understand very well what I'm trying to say to them. Also, I have found that in modern medicine, people are running from one specialist to the other. Whereas in Ayurveda, we don't have specialists because we are trained to look at the whole body as a whole, as one unit, not like a chassis of a car where there are different parts that you can take out and replace, because each part is affecting the other surrounding parts. Each system is affecting all the other systems. So we look at the whole picture.
Exactly. It's not like now I treat this client with hypothyroidism, I'll treat constipation separately and depression separately. We don't address the disease, we address the person. And they are all connected. So, like you said, mind, body, and the different pathologies are all connected. So, we look at that disease process and we say, okay, this is where it is, and this is how we address it. And though we simplify it a lot for
Mhm.
people, the fact is that it's a very advanced science where we study anatomy and physiology from our perspective. We study pathogenesis and the management of disorders and how to assess them, how to address them, how to individualize protocols. So it's very, very advanced and it's very beautiful. And a consultation itself is really nice because we spend so much time with people. That itself causes a shift, right? We want them to know themselves, we want us to know them. And
Right.
kind of detail in which we ask questions, it's not like just fill a form and then leave it at a doctor's office.
So I was going to ask you about the consultation process
Yes.
because it's so different from going to a regular doctor's visit. There's not a lot of waiting time to get an appointment. That's one of the biggest issues that people are having with modern medicine. And when you go for an Ayurvedic consultation, it's like we consider every individual to be a book with a beautiful story, and we want to know this book. We want to understand their story. So we ask them a lot of questions, not only about the symptoms, but about everything that's happening in their life, right? That's how we get to know them, because we know that everything that's happening in their life, including their families, their jobs, their stress level, their eating habits, everything is affecting their health. So we take the time to go through all of that. And then what else happens in a consultation? So give me a rundown of
Sure.
what happens in a consultation.
It's really interesting because I just went to a doctor. I've had a very stressful year. And they told me, like, as I was leaving, that I have an issue with my eye. Right? They
Mhm.
said, "Oh, there is a defect, and this has started." And I said, "Okay, can you tell me about it? What can I do to prevent or address it?" They had started walking out with me, and they said, "Oh, it maybe it was there from before. I don't know." They didn't have 5 minutes to address what made me worry so much. And I said, "Okay, no worries, I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, I can sit down and address it." But they gave a diagnosis without saying anything, right? And then so that really made me think about the contrast, where we have the paperwork, we sit down with the client for an hour, we go through in detail everything that they have discussed. We go through their current complaints, we go through their diet and lifestyle, their history in terms of all the ailments. And like you said, we assess them on three counts. We assess them through observation. So we know if somebody has a certain type of walk, that could indicate that they may have sciatica, right? Then
Mhm.
we assess them through touch, where we do a pulse assessment, or we could see their skin, observe eyes. So all of it, which we are trained in. And then we ask all the questions which lead us to an assessment of their constitution and their imbalances in terms of the functional energy. So it's really like quantum science. What we
Right.
are doing is quantum science. So somebody has, let's say, neuropathy, and it cannot be diagnosed through nerve, any derangement, but we can tell that there is a vata disorder, maybe kapha varna. So we know that this is starting off, right? So we ask all these questions related to what will lead us to saying, okay, these are the ailments,
Mhm.
this is why they have happened, these are the causes, this is the way the pathogenesis happened, and then we address it. When we address it comprehensively for that one person, we say, okay, these are certain formulations, maybe these are certain therapies you need, right? And then those therapies are like, everybody has seen shirodhara, right? The Ayurveda means you've seen, that pouring of oil on the head, massage therapies, and then we give formulations and recommendations for changes in diet and lifestyle. Like somebody who has an aggravation of the vata principle, which is air and ether, eating a lot of salads may be aggravating it, having cold food, having uncooked food. So we tailor their protocol, and we give them a proper protocol. So we spend 1 hour and then give them, okay, all these are the formulations, same day, next day, whatever is
Right.
our system. And we explain to them that this is who you are, this is how to optimize your life.
I want to add that we also do a physical examination. So we check
Yes,
their tongue, we look at the eyes, nails,
yes,
hair,
yes.
skin,
Yeah,
all of that. If it's in person, we do take the pulse, although the pulse is not the only indication of coming to a decision on their
sure,
assessment.
sure. Because there are so many points of assessment, right? And what happens is sometimes people feel it is only pulse, but we've done so many consultations during which are just
Yeah.
online, where we do tongue. There are so many other ways. So 21 forms of assessment in total.
Yeah. Teleconsultations are very popular
Yeah.
now because I have a lot of clients who are from New York and they are calling me. We do teleconsultations all the time. It's very convenient for them. And also, we can do the same assessment, we can do the same examinations, excluding the pulse, but we do everything else during a teleconsultation as well. So let's say a person is ready. to see an Ayurvedic practitioner, an Ayurvedic professional, where can they find one in their neighborhood? Are there any resources that they can go to? And the other part of this question is, when they do find a list of names, should they be looking for specific credentials? Because certain certifications, like for instance, you studied for 5 years, other people are studying for 2 years or 1 year. But then as Ayurveda becomes more and more popular, even my local gym is giving a 2 day course on Ayurveda holistic medicine, and they give you certification at the end of it. So, what should the general public be looking for in terms of credentials of a legitimate Ayurvedic practitioner or an
Sure.
Ayurvedic professional?
I teach the diversity, equity, inclusion class of Ayurveda, and I talk about appropriation, where people do a 2 day Ayurveda class and they'll set up a practice. That
Mhm.
is not okay. This is a healing practice. This is so, since we are a legal but not a licensed practice here, what we have done is we have self governed with industry scope of practice. So we have three levels. We have the Ayurvedic wellness counselor. The wellness counselors deal with prevention. Then we have practitioners, and for very long in the US, practitioners were the highest scope of the practice, where they deal with disease management. Of course, there are people who come from India who have studied, who are the Ayurvedic doctors from India, BAMS we call them. So they are highest,
Yes.
they have studied for 5 years, they have studied full time, they have done extensive casework, internships in hospitals. And now we have, my program was the Ayurvedic clinical specialist or Ayurvedic doctor program, which Kerala Ayurveda and some other places are teaching. So that is 5 years. So we delve deeper into case management, we delve deeper into therapies, into management of diseases in much greater detail. So, National Ayurvedic Medical Association has a list of certified practitioners who have taken the exam and
Mhm.
who take the ethics exam and who do a continuing education module. So, I think that is the most regulated. There are other associations, there are state associations, and they have to be. So, they may be able to tell you. Now, if you find online, you find that there's a practice, then a good question to ask them is, are you a wellness counselor? How long did you study? Where did you study? You shouldn't have to do all this. So that's why the National Ayurvedic Medical Association has a directory. So you go through their directory and find people.
National Ayurvedic Medical Association. So the acronym is NAMA, NAMA. And I will try and find that link to their search database and put it in the description so that the viewers can find an Ayurvedic professional in their own zip code or in their neighborhood.
The other thing is that you will find that the charges will be higher because there's no copay, there's no insurance,
Mhm.
right? And that is something you need to consider, the cost of prevention. See, there is, of course, it's possible to fall sick and then keep paying for medication and surgeries and so on. Or you can prevent disorders. So while we are trying to get licensure, we really do tell people that it's okay to invest in yourself. You go to a restaurant and you spend so much money, it's okay to invest in yourself. So just be aware that the cost of Ayurvedic therapies is going to be higher. That's because we spend all that time with you, we give you an individualized protocol, we follow up with you, and we try to prevent disorders. So we don't want you to go down the path of getting a disease and keep paying
Right.
for medication and surgeries, and then the complications that arise from it, and the other illnesses that arise from diabetes, diabetic neuropathy, and from metabolic syndrome, everything else that comes. So
Right.
uh, I wanted to put this up front because this is a
Yeah.
question a lot of people ask.
Yes, a lot of people, after the initial consultation, when there are follow ups, and then they begin to say that we have to pay out of pocket because Ayurveda is not licensed and insurance doesn't cover it. And I always say to them, look, you may come to me 3 or 4 times, but at the end of it, you will be so relieved knowing that I have given you the tools to take charge of your own health, you would know how to use the preventative measures so that the same symptoms don't appear again and again, and there are no complications going down the road. So all of that has to be taken into consideration when you pay an Ayurvedic professional. In their regular health modality, they are on lifelong medications basically, and they accept it without questioning. And this
Absolutely.
continues year after year. There are complications, there's hospitalization costs, and all of that. So people really have to weigh in and see both sides of the equation here.
And there's loss of productivity, there's loss of the quality of life which
Quality
one
of
has to
life.
factor in. Yeah. And you don't go to work or you don't go to school because you're sick, like take the case of my son. So he had asthma, and
Mhm.
then we were giving him medication. He had so it was the atopic march, eczema, allergies, asthma, and
Mhm.
more and more medication. And there was one time he missed 1 month of school, so they put him on a chronic disorder list, and he was just missing school all the time. And then from the medication there was so much restlessness, they said he's getting ADHD. So I said, okay, no, let me go to Dr. Jaee, who is our director, our mentor, the one of the best Vedyas in the world. So, and he was just, it was so simple that over time his life threatening allergies, the IgE markers reduced, his health turned around. He went from having to go to a special school back to public school. So you gain your life back. You gain, there's so much that you gain. I don't want to make a claim, but in my case, that's what I saw. That
Right.
you can, you lost productivity, lost joy, lost happiness, lost health, right? Well being, like Acharya Sushruta said, the pleasant state of mind, joyous spirit, all of that, right? Yeah.
Yes. And I do want to point out that in Ayurveda, our goal is not to put anybody on lifelong medication. In fact, we teach people, there's so much education involved during the consultation that we want them to take charge of their own life. And it makes me so happy when I see my clients taking interest in their own health and following the protocol. And they come back to me the next time for the follow up and they say, that Ayurveda has really changed my life because I'm seeing my health from a whole different perspective, from a different lens of Ayurveda, which they had never seen before. So I have so many cases where people with even chronic illnesses have turned themselves around. And ultimately, it's the quality of life really matters. And that's what we are focused on here. So, is there anything else that you want to add?
Absolutely. There's one last thing I have to say. Since you are on Zai's podcast YouTube channel, I have to tell you that she's such an excellent professional. I use her cases in my DEI class, in my classes, because she causes a shift because of the caring that she has. We say that there are some Vedyas who have the Vidya who talk to the prana directly of the Rogi. Their spirit talks to the spirit directly. So she causes healing with that shift. She is a healer. Since she practices online, I recommend her.
Thank you so much for that compliment. I really appreciate that coming from you.
When I would look at your casework, I would always tell Zai, I would tell her, "Oh my God, I would go to you." Like you would cause that kind of shift. But yeah, it is because of the love, the caring, the healing, the effort we put in. It comes from that space. Yeah.
They always say, you don't choose Ayurveda, but Ayurveda chooses you. We have some kind of calling that we have to answer, and that is why we are in this profession. As you can see, folks, Ayurveda has a very unique approach in that we focus on the root cause of the illness. We assess your natural constitution and then we create a tailor made, customized protocol for every single individual. So there are no blanket protocols, there are no blanket medications, but since we all have our own unique individual constitution, we need an individualized protocol. Folks, this was a preliminary overview of Ayurveda. We are going to bring you many more videos on Ayurveda and its perspective on diet, lifestyle, exercise, Ayurvedic techniques, herbal formulations, and many other topics. Let us know in the comments if you would like us to address a specific topic so we can bring it to the forefront. And thank you for watching this video. Do like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. It's your interaction that is going to help grow this channel and help this video to circulate. If you would like to set up an Ayurvedic consultation with me or with Anuradha, I will put the contact information in the description. Do reach out to us. Teleconsultations are available for your convenience. So, Anuradha, I want to thank you again for joining me here today. And thank you so much for your wisdom, your insight, for your knowledge that you have shared with us. It's always such a pleasure speaking with you. And I'm looking forward to diving deeper into this ocean that we call Ayurveda in the upcoming videos. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you. I'm honored. Namaste.